My name is Vicky Bolton. I'm one of the Chamber's directors. On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you today and thank you for joining us for what we hope is going to be a new format of Zoom event. So this today marks the first in a series of a conversation with events. And today, Maggie Newton, one of our members from Red Clematis Coaching, is going to be talking to us about how to maintain a positive mindset in a climate of change. However, before Maggie starts, I just need to do a little bit of housekeeping with you. Just to let you know, the session will last approximately 45 minutes. If you want to ask any questions, can I ask you submit them via the chat function at the bottom of the screen? They can be ideas, scenarios that are affecting you personally or areas that you need a little bit of expert help on, so feel free to use that facility. Because time is tight and we've got quite a few of you attending, it's not really going to be possible for everyone to do their 60 seconds. Therefore, if you'd like to introduce yourselves to everybody, can I ask that you put your business and contact details in the chat box, and then at the end of the event, you can just simply save it and have all the information you need. Please note this event will be, is being recorded and pictures will probably be taken throughout. This helps us to market this and future events via social media. If you're not happy for this to happen, you can still take part, but simply switch off your camera and change the name that appears on the screen to anonymous. Finally, can I ask you all to leave your video on, but mute yourselves whilst Maggie and I are talking. Okay, thank you everybody for being so compliant. Good Lord, thank you. Okay, I'd like to formally introduce Maggie. I've personally known her for 6 years as a friend, business colleague, and most recently as a client. I can wholeheartedly recommend her mentoring, disc profiling, coaching, and team development services because mainly I've witnessed the positive changes and impact she has on individuals and businesses across the region. She's spent over 30 years working in large organisations, creating and delivering communication campaigns to change customer behaviour. Her calm, encouraging approach and ability to put people at ease quickly enables people to develop, grow and thrive in a fun and collaborative learning situation. She's also fab at empowering people to work more effectively to achieve success, and she loves to see people grow in confidence and competence as they overcome obstacles and accomplish their goals. So really, I can't think of anyone better to guide us through the important subject of why having a positive mindset is important for us all. Along the way this morning, she will highlight business benefits as well as share some great tips and tools so we can all develop a positive mindset. Because let's face it, 2020 has delivered an awful lot of negative and worrying changes. And I don't know about you, but some days it's difficult to not feel overwhelmed by the situation around us. Okay, that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Maggie. Maggie, perhaps you can give us just a little bit of background before we kick off the questioning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicky, and thank you very much to the Chamber for giving me the opportunity to be the first in this series of conversations. And it's also lovely to see so many familiar faces, so thank you. So as Vicky said, a little bit more background on me and, you know, why I suppose I feel I'm quite qualified to talk about change. So probably up until about 7-8 years ago, my life was probably ticking along, you know, without any kind of major challenges really. And then in the last sort of 7 or 8 years, they seem to have come one by one. So 6 years ago, at the same time as being made redundant, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and was successfully treated for that in 2014. The same year that I started my own business. Was also diagnosed in 2017 with thyroid cancer. Going through that whole period, I also decided that at the point of having lived with an alcoholic husband for many, many years, it was time to move on. So I've been divorced, I've moved, and also this year having to cope with COVID as well. So but throughout that whole kind of all those changes, for me, there's always been that belief that things will get better. There's always another day, and being able to see the sort of opportunities and challenges. So, for example, with my own cancer experience, being able to use that now as an associate for working with cancer and coach people back to work after cancer. So an example of how I've used my own experience in a positive way. So before we get started on talking about, or Vicky asking me some questions, what I'd like you to do is just to set the scene a little bit, is just take a minute to look around the room, and I want you to look for things that are red. Okay. Now I want you to think about all the things you've seen that are green. And what you might find now is that your mind has been conditioned to look for red things, and actually you find it really hard to notice anything that's green. And that's the way our mind works. It's expecting something, and when something different comes along, it can really struggle to process that. And that's why sometimes we find change so hard, because it drains a lot of our energy. So that's a little sort of, taster for you.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you. I'm now just looking at everything that's red. You're quite right. We are very conditioned by things in life, and we need to overcome those conditions. Okay, I'm going to kick off with question 1. How do you know where your mindset is currently?
Okay, so there's several things you can do here. So what I'd like you all to do is think about, if you had to rate your positivity on a scale of 1 to 10, where you think that would currently be. And we're not asking anybody to share anything today. This is just for your own thinking. So have a think about your own kind of positivity rating, and then, perhaps in a few weeks' time, do it again. But this is a bit of self-reflection, really, because, what do you notice about what you do? What kind of phrases you use? Are you a glass half full or a glass half empty? Do you notice negative things and comment on negative things first? So perhaps a good exercise is to sort of ask colleagues, to ask family and friends, what do you hear me say? What kind of phrases do I use? And perhaps get them to rate your positivity as well. So that's always a good way to sort of get a bit of a baseline on how positive you feel that you're thinking, and where your mindset is at the moment. Also, are you someone who perhaps notices that you frown more than you smile? So it's noticing the little things about yourself that you do that you may not be aware of.
Okay, I've rated myself now. I'm feeling quite positive today because the sun's shining. What are the implications of not having a positive mindset, or one that is quite fixed, as you say? If you're always a glass is half empty kind of person, or like me, some days there isn't even a glass. How do you overcome that?
So I think there's some definite kind of well-being challenges through not having that positive mindset. So you may suffer with more anxiety, loss of confidence. That can lead to potentially depression. You might start to feel unwell, but it also cuts off opportunities. So if you're feeling more anxious about things, you're probably less likely to take risks. And that could lead to sort of poorer decision making. I don't know if any of you've heard of the term radiators and drains. Perhaps you become the person that nobody wants to talk to, because all they hear you talk about is sort of things that are going wrong, rather than the radiators who always have that kind of positive outlook and that smile on their faces. You might find yourself starting to what we call catastrophize more. So, you'll take a scenario and you'll lose your sense of perspective and proportion around it. So all of a sudden, something perhaps really simple becomes the most terrible thing, that's ever happened. And we can very often slip into catastrophizing without realizing it. And it stifles creativity and it leads to sort of stagnation. We don't want to sort of move ourselves out of our comfort zones.
So what impact does that have on a business then? If you're busy running a business and managing a team of individuals, what would the implications be?
So within a business environment, it can potentially reduce communication and people talking to one another, because if you're thinking, well, I don't really want to talk to so and so, because if I do, I'm just going to get all the negative stuff, then you'll close conversations down. If your decision making is affected, then decisions might be made around that would impact on perhaps resources or costs. They might go up. And also that whole kind of head in the sand mentality, not thinking creatively, can lead to losses, potentially redundancies and even business failure. And we've all kind of witnessed that this year. I was chatting yesterday to a chap who used to run an online, a face-to-face casino event company. And he was saying to me that, for the first couple of months of lockdown, he was just like, I don't know what to do, and sort of, almost like refused to think about it. And then when he got his sort of head around things and he started to sort of think creatively about, how could he take his business online? So now he's turned things around and been able to sort of look forward to, bookings over Christmas, because he's switched his casino services to online. So it's those kind of examples that help us think more creatively. And you've got that whole loss of motivation and productivity.
Okay. So what can help us deal with change more effectively and try to stay positive?
Well, I like to create a bit of a structure and a framework around things, because I find that helps me and that works for me. So, and this is something you can do for yourself, you can do it for your business, you can do it for a team. So what I would encourage you to do is literally get a big piece of paper, or however you like to sort of note things down, and note down all the challenges, all the issues, the things that are happening in your life, your work and business right now. And then group them into sort of categories. So which of these do they fall into? So do they fall into kind of what I loosely call basic needs? So whether that's to do with your own well-being, exercise, work-life balance, your environment is one category. Meaning and purpose is another category. Support, so thinking about the support that you have around you. Learning and growth, self-awareness and emotional intelligence, enjoyment and fun, which, let's face it, is very important, certainly very important to me, and compassion giving. So when you sort of create your list or whatever, think about which of those categories the challenges that you've noted down fall into, and then go through those and think, what can I actually directly control? What can I influence? And what do I have no control over and need to let go? And then have a look back and see, right, for those categories, how many challenges, how many things have I written down in each of those categories? And that will give you some kind of indication, perhaps, of where you need to perhaps do a little bit more work on.
Okay, right. I need to start regrouping some things actually. And I need to stop trying to control everything. It's very difficult when you're a control freak. Okay. So what are some tips and tools that can be used to help improve some of those categories?
Okay, so I'm just going to share with you a few of the things that have helped me. So I haven't got a big long list of everything in all those categories, but these are some of the things that have helped me. So certainly for me, my environment, the basic needs is really, really important. So making sure that my workspace is clutter-free, which can sometimes be quite challenging when you're working on a little desk. But also I've got plenty of plants, I've got plenty of light around me. I have a big board up in my office, and on the board I have I do myself a vision board every year, and I think about, you know, what's important to me, and you know, what kinds of things do I want to see on that. And then I have things like, you know, thank you cards from clients. I have little sayings that, you know, have come across, or I've noted down things that, you know, are important to me. I also have my goals up there, and I have pictures of my family, you know, my grandchildren, things that make me smile. So, you know, for me, it's very easy then to look up from my laptop, look at my board and think, yeah, that will put a smile back on my face. So there's the kind of environment side of things. Also for me, getting out in the fresh air. So walking, being outside, gardening is really helps my mindset. And research suggests that just 20 minutes being outside can lead to more expansive and open thinking. So for me, getting out, I try and get out first thing, or possibly later in the day, because it gives me a break away from being sat in the chair all day, you know, particularly in sort of current circumstances. And again, it helps you focus on something else. It helps you really clear the mind. And then think about the people around you. I talked earlier about radiators and drains, you know, so think about the people who maybe drain some of your energy, and where you could perhaps spend more time with some radiators, those who are going to be fun to be around. And, you know, even now in sort of, you know, lockdown and restricted seeing people, you know, catching up on Zoom or by telephone is a great way to be able to do that. Give yourself permission to daydream. You know, I think so often we're conditioned to think, you know, we've got to spend all our thinking time about doing something, whereas actually being able to just think about nothing. Personally, I find that quite hard, but but yes, just giving yourself 10 minutes a day to kind of think about nothing and see what pops up. So those are kind of things around what I call the basic needs or environment. Another thing to help with the positive mindset is very much around giving back. And the very act of, you know, perhaps an act of kindness, helping somebody, you know, doesn't have to be anything sort of very complicated, but that very act of sort of giving, doing something for somebody can make us feel an awful lot better. It releases, I think it's serotonin, so it's linked to our happiness hormones. And be kind to yourself, you know, be compassionate to yourself, because, you know, so often we're our own worst critics, and actually we need to be our cheerleaders. We need to really look after ourselves. Think about maybe doing some volunteering or pro bono work. So a lot of the works that I do with working with cancer, for example, is pro bono, because it's for people who can't afford to pay for coaching. But, you know, for me, that's a great feeling of being able to sort of help and give something back through using my own experience. Then in terms of support, so think about your network, because it's probably a lot wider than you actually think. You know, and think about who can you reach out to, who can you ask for help. And then there's the whole thing about meaning and purpose, and why are we doing things. And another tip here is that something I do I choose to do at the end of the day, but you don't have to. But I make a note of 3 things that I've been really grateful for in the day, because actually the act of writing it down helps me put things in perspective and think, well, I thought it was a rubbish day, but actually I have done this and I have done that and I did get that call. So as I say, it does help put things in perspective and help you feel more positive about things. If it's you can think about 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 achievements, or even 3 things where you've made a difference. It's just finding that the kind of the things that have gone well to help you focus on things that are going well rather than less well. And then the whole area of learning and growth. So, thinking about your own self-talk, how many times do you hear yourself say, I'm no good at this? And you do it without thinking. So I'm guilty of it as well. So I used to sort of say, I'm no good at drawing, I'm useless at drawing. And actually drawing was one of the new skills that I did take up during the first lockdown. I started an online drawing class and absolutely loved it. And so a way of reframing I'm no good at might be something like, I'm a beginner at drawing. So you can automatically see the kind of the difference in the kind of the negativity of that. So I'm no good at negative, I'm a beginner at is slightly more positive. So it's about thinking of different ways in which you can sort of, position things. Learning, as I say, learning a new skill. Ask yourself what we call some learner questions. So we very often tend to sort of judge ourselves as well as judging others. So we might ask ourselves a sort of a judgmental question might be, well, what on earth's gone wrong with that? So a learner question might be, what's useful here? Or what are my available choices? So it's a slightly different emphasis on words, which takes your headspace into one that's more learning and moving forward focused, rather than trying to look for the things that have gone badly. So there was quite a lot there.
Gosh, yeah, there is. I'm busy jotting a few things down. Okay, so perfect scenario. I'm now more positive. How do I instill or share my positivity with my team?
Okay, so there's lots of the tips and tools that I have mentioned. You can encourage your team to do as well, family members too. But perhaps one tip for the team is, maybe have a weekly meetup and ask every team member to share, 3 things that have gone well for them at work this week. So you're taking the principles of the, what am I grateful for, 3 things that have gone well, 3 ways in which I've made a difference, and you're asking the team to collectively share those and put those together and have a discussion on it. So it's being able to take some of those things and apply them in a team framework.
And how can you help to sort of motivate others who may be, not willing to articulate things that are wrong? So they might be one of those people who sort of internalizes their feelings. They're feeling a little bit vulnerable. They're a bit isolated because obviously most people are working remotely now. How can you sort of have a word with them? Is it down to having special one-to-ones? How can you deal with those individuals who don't want to share their issues in front of others?
You almost have to draw. You have to draw things out. So start with some very, very high level questions. Help. It's about putting somebody at ease. before you go in for the sort of what I call the let's get to the nub of this question,
Okay.
gentle questions to dig down and delve and gently probe, and then you might sort of be able to uncover some of the things that they say and be able to sort of say, yeah, and so tell me a bit more about how things are working at the moment, using what we call TED questions. So TED stands for tell, explain, and describe, can give you an awful lot of information that you can then sort of pick and drill down on.
So are there any people who don't have a positive mindset, if they're in your team, are there any characteristics that you might be able to spot? I mean, are they likely to be, I don't know, have more sick days, be away from work more? Are they going to be the people who are great procrastinators? Are there any sort of characteristics we can spot in people so that we know to approach them slightly differently?
They might well be those who don't say very much, who might, you might be able to spot things by the language that they use, because they talk about, well, this is really hard and I haven't been able to do this, and everything is focused on what they haven't been able to do rather than perhaps what they have been able to do. Listen to some of the language they use. Do they talk about struggles or battles or fighting, or what's their kind of language? So it's about noticing some of these things.
Okay, so obviously we know that having a positive mindset is good for our well-being, and it's good for reducing stress levels. What else is it really good for? What else do we really need a positive mindset for?
It just helps you get on with the day to day. It helps you focus on the future. It helps you be able to think about beyond the challenges, and how you can make a difference. So yeah, it's sometimes it's quite difficult to articulate the why, because it's almost an inner sense. But yeah.
Okay, right, Maggie. Well, that's been excellent. I've certainly been jotting down some notes, and will be questioning myself later on my positivity levels, probably on a weekly basis. And I think we've all learnt a few tips and tricks to be able to either distill down to our teams or just share with other people. Though obviously, just not being very sincere for a moment, if you don't hear from me for a while, that might mean that you're a drain or a radiator. I don't know. We could be very critical, couldn't we, now, about people that we know? So thank you for that. Have we got any questions? You can unmute yourselves if you would like, because I've checked the chat box and you're either all just very excited with what's been going on, or you just have forgotten to submit any questions. Has anybody got a question? You can unmute yourself and ask a question of Maggie.
Maggie, in a kind of workplace team environment, you've obviously got a mix of personality types and positives and those that see the world differently. How do you, in a kind of helpful way, encourage those that perhaps you as a sort of team leader might sense need to view the world more positively, and they're in the midst of others who do see the world more positively? You just feel that they need geeing up a bit. How do you in a kind of positive way and in a team environment approach those that might be more difficult to work with because of that outlook, or might be creating a kind of perhaps a more negative team kind of morale?
You see, thanks for that question. You've automatically kind of made a bit of a judgment that yes, people that are negative, aren't happy, or that's going to impact on their job. So I think one of the tools I talked earlier about self-awareness and emotional intelligence. One of the things that you could think about doing is something like disc profiling, or another kind of tool like that, where you really, because you can make lots of assumptions about, you know, your team members and why they behave in a certain way. Something like a profiling tool will help you really sort of understand that, oh, okay, so that's why so and so is extroverted, that's why they're quite direct. And it gives you some opportunities then, probably in one-to-ones, to have some conversations about, you know, how do they feel they communicate, how does their, you know, how do they feel that they behave. And probably I would suggest you do things in a one-to-one way first, and then when the team feels more comfortable sharing with one another, and you get that sense that there is that sort of openness and trust there, then getting the team collectively to start, you know, looking at ways in which that they can, you know, improve some of the areas that they want to work on.
Often people are a bit jaded with kind of personality profile type devices. But in your experience, is that normally a very helpful way of enabling a team to work well together?
It gives you some insights, Neil. So I would never suggest you rely on any tools completely, but they give you some insights and they give you some opportunities to explore different areas. But you know, they're no substitute for really getting to know your team at a personal level. Having development plans or sort of, you know, learning and growth plans for everybody, and treating them as individuals rather than, you know, personality profiling can be seen as a bit of a label. You know, I'm so and so, you know, I'm no good at this or something. So it's about trying to take away some of the judgmental aspects around personality profiling.
Thank you.
Hi, Maggie. Sorry I was a bit late, didn't have any details to come in.
Hi, Simon.
You called them, I think you call them drains. I like to call them emotional sponges. I don't know, you probably
Okay.
know that. Yeah, so I'm not a great fan because it really is a drain on the rest of the office resources. I have, as you know, I have a sizable gut, and I use my gut feel of the interview process. Is it unfair of me to establish at an interview possibly that I feel that there's an emotional sponge sitting in front of me and just not employ them?
I think you probably, depending on your recruitment process, Simon, you'd probably need to make sure that you'd followed, you know.
Oh, they have to go through 3 stages before they get to me, don't worry. And that's what, sometimes my colleagues find that a bit frustrating. They go through all these processes and I sit down in front of someone, I can immediately tell. I don't know why, I've just got this knack of being able to tell that this person is going to be someone that comes in on a Monday morning miserable and grumpy, and the rest of the office sort of get their good vibes get sucked into those,
and I think,
those
you
negative
know,
vibes.
Team fit is a really, really important criteria, and I think if you feel that, you know, that is going to happen, that will impact on the team, so that will have consequences. So I think there's a lot to be said about going on your gut instinct.
I think also as bosses we have responsibilities for the rest of our staff as well. I know my wife is currently going through, she's a teacher and she has a teaching assistant who is a classic emotional sponge and is constantly miserable and going about how the world is all against her, and my wife finds that incredible drain, but her bosses haven't spotted this and not helping the whole situation by allowing this person to suck in the good vibes from all the people around her. So we do have, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't slip past my very tight net, but and if they do, it's up to us as bosses to help that process if we can, and help. Do you honestly think that a true emotional sponge is retrainable, so to speak? Can they become suddenly an extremely positive, great person that comes in the Monday morning going, come on, let's take it on? Is that possible?
I don't know whether that's how feasible that would be. Having said that, I have seen, you know, particularly through some of the cancer coaching that I've been doing, I have seen some people who've been through some real life-changing experiences really change their outlook on life. Because it's been a massive wake-up call for them.
Yes.
So it's probably not usual in the grand scheme of things, but it can happen.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions for Maggie? It's all gone very quiet, and I was feeling an 8 when we started this, and I'm now feeling a 10. So I'm feeling very positive today, but that's partly because I'm getting a new front door. So there you go. It's amazing what can help.
While you think of some more questions, I've just got a little bit of further information and reading that I'll pop into the chat box, because I mean we have just skimmed the surface. So I'll just pop that in there.
Thank you, Maggie. If there's some nice tips and whatever, please download them, people, if you want to the mood hoovers, as I call them, rather than drains. Definitely.
Yeah, so we put together some tips which are on the website, and then I've also put a few sort of suggested further reading and TED Talks in there, which if you want to find out more about the subject is there. Action for Happiness is a great site. I know a lot of people use that in some of their social media posts in terms of hints and tips. There's a website called Positive Psychology. Lots of sort of books, and you know there's an awful lot of science behind it which we haven't sort of covered today. So there's some things in there. Any more questions?
They've all gone very quiet. They must all be so positive.
Am I allowed another question?
No.
Go on, Neil.
Well, Maggie, you and I have chatted in over this year on 2 or 3 occasions, which I've always found very helpful and positive. And I wondered whether it was worth giving you the opportunity to show how you can help, say, us different people within our business places with kind of like a team environment. Some of the things that Simon might have asked about. You do that kind of work, don't you? Sort of working with a team. Is that something people? Is that part of your kind of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as with everybody this year, you know, I've had to completely rethink the way that I do things, because you know, prior to March, most of my work was face to face, and I would sort of work on going out and you know delivering workshop sessions in in situ in companies. So you know, for me, it took a couple of months to get my head around. Oh, okay, I need to do something differently, and it has made me rethink about my own kind of business model, because I was probably a bit over reliant on associate work, which stopped. So it's given me the opportunity to really sort of revisit my own business and think again about how do I want to build this business and take it forward. And so actually getting to grips with Zoom and running sort of team sessions online has actually given me a lot more flexibility and means I can do a lot more things but in a shorter space of time. So taking sort of bite-sized topics like how to improve the communication with your team, and being able to sort of put sessions together online. So yeah, there's lots of different sort of ways. I mean, mine is as you might expect, is a coaching and a facilitating style. So you don't get loads of content. You get the opportunity to have a conversation with your team and somebody to perhaps ask you the questions that you may be a little bit wary about asking yourself.
Yeah, that's good. I just wanted to make sure people knew how they might be able to kind of come back to you after this event to seek further help, really.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to have a sort of a chat either before or after Christmas, more than happy to kind of have a Zoom chat, catch up with people. You can contact me via the website or email, telephone. All my contact details are on the
website. Thanks.
Can I say something?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, it's not really a question for Maggie, but I just wanted to just a comment, just feedback from the session. So, you know, when Maggie said, take a piece of paper and write a list of all the things that you've got to deal with, my mind already went into, you know, the negative stack, all the problems I'm having. And I just really liked the categories you put in. So the basic needs, meaning and purpose, support, learning and growth. And as we got down lower the list, it made me stop and think and like, actually, what am I doing for self-enjoyment? What am I doing for learning and fun? What am I doing for compassion and thinking? And I think those kind of questions, I don't tend to think about them in terms of the things that I need to think about. I'm always sort of like firefighting and almost like, yeah, fighting against deadlines and looking to solve problems, whereas your model seems to give a perspective of sit down and look at the whole thing, the good and the bad, and then put them in the different spaces. And if you haven't got enough, for example, in the learning and fun category, make sure you think about what to put in there. And I really, really like that. And yeah, I'll be using that going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
I think you're right, Lena, and I think Maggie's beautifully summed it up. We are actually really quite harsh on ourselves, and we do have to remember that this year has been, and I hate the word, but I'm going to have to use it, unprecedented. And none of us, when the clock chimed midnight on the 31st of December and we welcomed in 2020, I don't think any of us thought we'd be sitting here 12 months later feeling like we do, or having battled so many obstacles or challenges. So really, from myself to the rest of you, I think well done. Big slap on the back. Let's just champion ourselves, and let's help and champion others, because we can all do that, and we do get a great sense of achievement, I think, from helping other people. But we also need to be really kind to ourselves and, yeah, take some time out, whether it is to think about absolutely nothing, or whether it is to think about nice things and do nice things, however restricted life it now is. But we should remember that we're doing a great job. So well done, everyone. You've all made the call. You've all going to be boosting your positivity and mindset going forward. Just in the last few minutes, I just want to share with you details of another event that we have on the 15th of December, which is our Bank of England event. If you think, well, that sounds a bit dull, then I'm just about to tell you it isn't dull, it's fascinating. We get to meet Graham Chaplin online. He's the Bank of England's regional agent, but it's your opportunity to feed back to him. So it's a great session where you can talk about what's going on in your business, you know, your marketplace, the economy, what environmental, economic factors are impacting on you. And obviously with the B word, however many days away it is now, it's a great way to get your thoughts across, but also understand a little bit more about how the Bank of England are dealing with Brexit and lockdown and all the other stresses and strains that we've all faced. So if you want to sign up to that, and I heartily recommend that you do, that's on the 15th of December. Just go to Banbury Chamber's website. And whilst many of you may have received Neil's emailing this morning with our December newsletter, if you haven't, please read it. He's a great chairman, and his intro is very, very empowering. And and there's lots of details of things that we're doing to help businesses and the latest business information for tier systems and lockdown and the rest. So please make use of our resources. Whilst we do miss meeting you all face to face, Zoom is great, but it's no substitute for an actual cup of coffee and an actual, you know, unsocial distanced hug. So that's really all I want to say. We hope to extend these events next year. I know we're busy working on some great people to talk to. But on behalf of the Chamber, thank you all for tuning in today. And a big, big thank you to Maggie for sharing her tips and techniques, and for making us all feel a little bit upbeat in an otherwise weird and wonderful world. So thank you very much, everybody. And if you want to copy the chat so you've got everyone's contact details, then please do. You literally go to the bottom, there's 3 little dots, click on more, and there should be an opportunity to save it. So if you want everyone's details, that's great. Thank you very much. If anyone wants to hang on the call for a little bit more networking, please do. But if it's lunchtime or you want to go and beat up the drains in your organisation, please do. So thank you very much.
The drains, Vicky.
Empty the drains, not beat them up. Sorry, empty the
drains. Be sympathetic. I just wanted to say a big thank you again. I've also got a quote which I thought would be quite a nice way to finish. When I was looking up a few quotes, I thought I really like this one. So it's by a chap called Harvey Mackay, who I've not come across before. But it says, an optimist understands that life can be a bumpy road, but at least it's leading somewhere. They learn from mistakes and failures and are not afraid to fail again. So there you are, there's a little quote to leave you with.